world moves fast. Your workday? Even faster. Pitching products, drafting reports, analyzing data. Microsoft 365 Copilot is your AI assistant for work. Built into Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and other Microsoft 365 apps you use. Helping you quickly write, analyze, create, and summarize. So you can cut through clutter and clear a path to your best work. Learn more at Microsoft.com/M365 Copilot.
Welcome back to Fine Tooning with Drew Taylor, your one-stop shop when it comes to animation news and commentary. I'm entertainment writer Jim Hill, and Mr. Taylor, whose writings in the industry you can regularly read over on The Wrap, and whose musings on the Mission Impossible movies you can still listen to on Light the Fuse, the official Mission Impossible podcast. Drew and I are recording this week's show on Sunday, February 1st. Tomorrow is Groundhog Day, which is when we see, if an oversized rodent, to be specific, a large ground squirrel, which is also known as a marmot, sees its shadow, which then supposedly determines whether or not we have 6 more weeks of winter, which is appropriate to bring up groundhogs, because on this week's Fine Tuning, we're going to be doing a lot of talking about animals, because Drew has stories to share about 2 animated features that are built around animals. We have Goat, that's from Sony Pictures Animation. It will be released to theaters through Columbia Pictures and debuting this coming Friday, Drew, right? No, actually next.
Yes, next Friday.
Next Friday, Friday the 13th, 10 days from when this podcast posts, I mean. And then Drew also will have some info to share about Hoppers. That's coming from Pixar. It will be released to theaters through Walt Disney Pictures. That one debuts on Friday, March 6th, so that's 4 weeks and change out from when this show posts. And that's kind of an interesting development, given especially how well Zootopia 2 has been doing at the box office. Just tech before we got started here, it's now at $1.77 billion. And up for an Academy Award for Best Animated Feature. But what was it? When we left off last week's show, Drew, you were headed out the door to host 2 panels for Arco, which is also up for an Oscar this year, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, that was great. We did 2 Q&As at the AMC Century City, both full houses, both great audiences. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it was me and Hugo, the writer-director of Arco, and it was just a really great chats. You know, I love learning about the process of making an animated and independent animated feature in another country. And yeah, if you haven't seen Arco yet, it is playing wide now everywhere from Neon. So go out and see it. I don't have to ask Jim if he has seen it, because he has not seen it, I'm assuming. But maybe it'll be there on your cheap night, Jim, at the cinema.
I can only hope. I mean, again, that's the thing of living in the woods of New Hampshire. In fact, I had a conversation with the folks over at Red River, because it turns out the live action shorts, there is, those are actually going out into theater bundled together, all of this year's nominees, but evidently nobody stepped up and is doing the same thing with the animated shorts, which is frustrating.
That's disappointing.
It is disappointing. But anyway, we were just talking about how Zootopia continues to do at the North American box office, and we'll discuss how the rest of the films did this past weekend in a moment. But first, we need to acknowledge our sponsor, which is, of course, unlockmagic.com, where you get real discounts on Walt Disney World and Universal Orlando tickets, sometimes upwards of 12% off. And just so you know, Unlock Magic is run by the exact same team behind the DVC rental store and the DVC resale market. So if you're planning a trip to Central Florida in 2026, just pick your dates, grab your tickets, and go. Unlock Magic makes it that easy to get some pretty significant savings. Oh, and when you get your tickets, tell the nice folks at unlockmagic.com that it was Drew and Jim that sent you, okay? Okay, back to box office news. We were just talking about the sequel to 2016's Zootopia. Now in its 10th week in theaters, it was number 4 at the box office this past weekend. Sold $58 million worth of tickets. And just ahead of that was Melania, number 3 at the box office with $7 million. Number 1 was the new Sam Raimi, what is it, black comedy horror survival movie, right? Send Help?
Yes, it's a joy. It's absolutely, yeah, it's wonderful. It is really, really wonderful. I loved it. Well, yeah, whatever it takes to get this movie to be a hit, I'll do. You know, it's vintage Sam Raimi, Jim, in the best possible way. Yeah.
Well, all right, I think a lot of us know what that means.
Yes, absolutely.
All the way back to The Evil Dead. Wow. Okay, well, nice to see him working the black comedy side of the street again, and horror. But interesting, it was sort of early, at least in the weekend. The number 1 spot kept toggling back and forth between Send Help and Iron Lung, which is based on the 2022 video game of the same name. Did you get to see that as well, Drew?
No, I had no idea about what this guy was. He's a YouTuber. He made a movie. I don't really know anything about him, but the fact that it almost dethroned Sam Raimi, the king of the genre. It's pretty interesting. I mean, I'm very interested in seeing it now. I saw Shelby Oaks last year that was also made by a YouTuber. So, that kind of career path is really interesting to me. And I'm just glad it made more than Melania, Jim. So, that's all that really matters here.
There we go. Okay. Now, it's important to point out, though, that right now, this Sunday, February 1st, kind of a distracted day when it comes to entertainment news, because as Drew and I are recording right now, the Grammys are going on. In fact, we had news break while putting together this week's show that Golden from K-pop Demon Hunters just took home a Grammy for Best Song for Visual Media. And over the evening, K-pop Demon Hunters, especially Golden from that animated film, was up for, 3 more awards. Best Pop Duo Group Performance, Best Remix Recording, and then Song of the Year. And also important to remember that Golden also got nominated for a Best Song Oscar just this past week. And now, mind you, the Academy Awards aren't being held till March 15th. But did you see, and by the way, this news comes all the way from the Nuremberg Toy Fair, that we're finally getting some K-pop Demon Hunters toys and games and stuff from Mattel and Hasbro?
Everything, Jim, everything. Yeah, I had been clued in that some of these announcements were going to be this week. There are even more announcements coming soon, Jim. On the K-pop Demon Hunters merchandise side. But, I mean, this is a license that is so sought after that Mattel and Hasbro, for the first time ever, split the license. So some things are being made by Mattel, some are made by Hasbro because they both wanted it so bad.
Wow.
And I'm sure you saw the suite of products, Jim, everything from Nerf swords to Furbies that look like the Derpy Tiger to everything in between. So, yeah, I particularly have my eyes on the Hot Toys figures of the girls, which are very cool. But yeah, something for everyone. And there's even more just around the corner. So stay tuned.
Now, what's intriguing about this is K-pop Demon Hunters first became available for streaming on Netflix back on June 20th, 2025, last year. All right. And, and Netflix really hasn't done a whole lot of licensing for animated stuff so far. Do you get a sense, especially on the heels of just what happened with K-pop Demon Hunters, this is now going to change?
Yeah, I think they are going to be a little bit more forthright. We have Swapped coming up, which has a lot of, consumer products possibilities. I've also heard about one of the Skydance movies that they're doing. I think they have two more two more after Raygun, but one of them has big consumer products potential. So that is coming down the pike. I don't know if there's going to be anything for Raygun. I know that everyone's interested in Raygun. I don't know how much stuff is going to be coming out, but I think that K-pop, yeah, you're right, Jim, and kind of like awakened them to, you might want to have some stuff on the shelves, when these things hit.
And by the way, folks, just want to remind you that K-pop Demon Hunters was the most streamed movie of 2025 with, again, this is such an amazing number, 20.55 billion minutes of viewing. Now, where this gets interesting is with 20.55 billion minutes, that's still not the most streamed thing from last year. That was Bluey. Bluey, the little Australian cattle dog, 45.2 billion minutes of viewing over on Disney Plus, and I was fascinated to see that right behind that. If you held a gun to my head, I would have never predicted this. But the second most viewed, I guess, series was Grey's Anatomy, because they have a library of 450 episodes. But that last year, because of those 450 episodes, 40.92 billion minutes of viewing. And then followed by Stranger Things, which that I get because pop culture phenomena, but that was 39.95 billion minutes. And we talked about this previously, Drew. Have we settled in yet to the whole viewing minutes marker now? The metric is to whether or not something's a huge success in streaming.
I don't know if we've discussed it. It's a very interesting kind of, measurement for success. If you want to talk about it briefly, sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the notion. I mean, I come out of the world of, I'm old, and I used to work, I used to run a theater. So the notion of, okay, that's a successful movie because it sold that many tickets over its opening weekend, or it made that much money over its run, even the Nielsen's, the way TV ratings used to be weighed, or measured, and to now be in the streaming space where it's not how many times somebody watched an entire film or TV episode or that sort of thing. It's these viewing minutes thing. And what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, it's really interesting. We will talk at some point this year about another animated movie that'll be on streaming, but just how important those opening few minutes are to hook them, the viewer. I don't know if you saw that Matt Damon and Ben Affleck were talking about how Netflix sort of suggested to them that they should restate the plot of the movie every few minutes because people are always on their phones while watching Netflix.
Right.
It's really interesting. Those minutes, though, I mean, you're talking about streaming services that I think Netflix is on 92 countries or something. Like, it's just insane, the reach. It's like 300 million households. So yeah, I mean, I think the minutes thing is, I would love to know how many people just finish the movie, but yeah, the minutes thing is an interesting kind of marker for success or failure. And you're right, it can be obviously very skewed when presenting the tallies of how many minutes things are viewed. But, when you think about how K-pop Demon Hunters was viewed, I think 500 million times or whatever in the first 94 days. I'm just so curious because if you look at the top 10, it still has stayed in the top 2 or 3 all this time. So I'm just so surprised by that, and I'm so curious as to what the actual final tally is. Maybe one day Netflix will just say, "Listen, this is how many people have seen it." A year later or something. But
okay.
Yeah.
For me, this kind of reminds me, I had a good friend who worked in Walt Disney Home Entertainment and who talked about how, that's the thing, back in the days of VHSs, that the notion that, a kid, you'd buy, a Beauty and the Beast or Aladdin or a Little Mermaid. And the notion was that would play continuously at the house. It just would become sort of, for lack of a better term, visual comfort food. And I just wonder if that's also what we're dealing with K-pop Demon Hunters, that, people enjoy it enough that it's like, oh, they put it on and it's playing. But as you mentioned, they're not really watching it actively. They've got their phones on, and they're on their phones, and they occasionally lift their heads for a particular favorite moment out of the movie, or a song or that sort of thing. I mean, I don't know. It just makes me think of. There's a famous story about when Nielsen, for a time went from diaries to people meters on top of the people who did the people they recruited to do ratings. And when Nielsen got the actual data as to how people really watch television, they they killed the program because we can't take this info to advertisers. It would destroy the industry.
That's crazy. I always wanted a Nielsen box in my house growing up. I thought I could really change things, Jim, if I had one in my house.
Well, now, speaking of boxes, Minecraft, all of those little boxy characters, Bluey, it actually shows up on Minecraft this week, February 5th. And the Minecraft version of the show will allow you to explore the Healer house and unlock secrets from the whole family. And Bluey's path to world domination continues. Mind you, we're still 18 months out from the Disney released or theatrical released Bluey movie that comes out August 6, 2027. And as for when Bluey, the character show meet and greet, that opens at Animal Kingdom. Smart Money right now is the Memorial Day weekend. They've already begun casting, I guess, and hiring folks. So, by the way, that's Monday, May 25th. And finally, just this past week on the Disney Dream, Bluey and Bingo showed up. Did a new show on this is the cruise line boat, a meet and greet. So this Australian cattle dog is everywhere. He's great at herding, but not so much at basketball. But speaking of animals that are great at basketball, when we get back from this break, Drew's going to talk about goat. But first, this. And we're back. But before we talk about Will Harris, the small goat, who winds up being really good at roar ball. That's the sport that's at the center of this Sony Pictures Animation film, Goat. We have a quick note about a certain Oscar-winning rabbit. Now, if you've listened to this podcast over the past year or so, you might remember last year, this was mid-March 2025, we saw hundreds of Looney Tunes theatrical shorts removed from Max. And this news coming on the heels of what happened to Coyote versus Acme, the Warner Brothers decision in November of 2023 to take that film and throw it in the vault for tax purposes. This made a lot of folks think that David Zaslav and company weren't Looney Tunes enthusiasts. Well, okay, now it's February of 2026, and we know that, for example, Coyote versus Acme actually has a theatrical release date, August 28th of this year. And the Looney Tunes have a new, classier home. Did you see this news about what's going on at Turner Classic Movies, Drew?
I did see that. I don't know what Turner Classic Movies is still an arm of the Warner Brothers Discovery apparatus as of now. And I know that there's at least one more Looney Tunes animated feature in development at Warner Brothers. So, I mean, they have this weird relationship with them, but yes, what you're referring to is that TCM will be the prestige home of Looney Tunes shorts, and I believe they're the stars of the month for February too, right? Isn't that
they are? Yeah. In fact, all month long. What is it? The 45 of the classic Bugs Bunny shorts. In fact, they're starting with the one that launched him as a character, Wild Hair, the Tex Avery film from 1940. So again, I'm happy to see this, but it seems a weird reversal, from what was going on just a year or so. Or was this the plan all along to get them off of Max and move them over to Turner Classic?
Also, for our physical media fans, I want to point out that the Looney Tunes Collector's Vault Volume 2 from Warner Brothers, the Warner Archive collection is coming out on March 24th, 2026, and you can pre-order it now. These have classic shorts from Chuck Jones, Frisk Freeling, Bob Clampett, all of our guys. And I want to shout those out because no matter where they go, Jim, in the streaming world, they can't take them away from you if they're on your shelf. So all true.
Yes. Now, mind you, every so often I wish somebody would come into the house and take Space Jam, or Space Jam Legacy. This is the Bugs Bunny, movie where he plays basketball. I mean, those two films were never as good as the Nike ads from 92 and 93 that literally, it created the reason to make these movies.
Hair Jordan, isn't that what it was?
There we go.
Isn't that there we go. Yeah.
Yep. So, which brings us now to Goat, this new Sony Pictures Animation project being released by Columbia Pictures again on Friday, February 13th. And so, Drew, you got recently the chance to sit down with the filmmakers, the talent behind this?
I did. I actually saw the whole movie.
Ooh,
see, that's what's nice about both of these press days. I got to see the whole movie, and it is delightful. I really had a great time watching it. I think everybody will. It's got a really lovely style. There's kind of these big impact moments, which they kind of render like holographic playing cards, which is very cool. So, Spider-Verse, I sat through these panels, and one of the things that the kind of visual guy said is Spider-Verse took from comic books. We are taking from trading cards, which I thought was very cool. So in key moments, Jim, you'll see like kind of the foil, the metallic foil and all that stuff coming through. It's really cool. And there's some like distressing on the, it's really neat. It's a really cool visual motif that plays out throughout the entire movie, but the characters are strong. The animation is great. It's just a really fun sports movie. And Jim, you'll appreciate that each court is in a different location in this crazy animal world. So, and all bets are off. They're playing on snow and ice. They're playing in a kind of lava pit, all of these different locations. And the animals go from being on 2 legs to 4 legs within the game, which is really cool. And all of the rigging for these characters were built from the same model, which is really hard to do. Usually you would have 2 or, I was like, how many models did you have for each character? They said only 1. So it's really cool stuff. So I think you'll really appreciate it, Jim, as a lover of animation, as a lover of animals, and a lover of really cool-looking movies, which this definitely is.
Now, did you get to chat with the directors, Tyree Dillahay and Adam Rosette?
I did. And, Tyree told me that they had been working on this movie for 7.5 years. Can you imagine?
It started development in 2019? Really?
Yeah, I think he pitched actually maybe even a year earlier. Obviously, things got slowed down by the pandemic. But yeah, I mean, it was just, people came on to it. Stephen Curry is a producer. I'm sure you saw that, Jim, and he's a voice actor in the movie, and he kind of lent his expertise, and they partnered with the NBA on a lot of things.
Oh,
and
speaking
so
of which,
you feel that authenticity, yeah.
I want to remind folks that again, you brought this up previously on Fine Tooning, but kind of a genius promotional gimmick for this thing. This going into theaters the exact same weekend as what the All-Star game, right?
Yeah, which is taking place in LA. So yeah.
Okay.
I said very loudly in the room, Jim, it'd be nice if they had some tickets for press. But I didn't get anywhere, sadly, on that one. But
all right. Well, you said it again. Maybe the second time it'll sink in. Did they?
Yes.
On every animated film, there is one scene that everybody is like, "How the hell are we going to do that?" And did they talk about one specific scene for the movie that was a huge challenge, or was it more?
I mean, I think the big kind of climactic game, I think, is probably the biggest challenge.
Okay.
Just because of the amount of crowd work, the kind of, as I said, Jim, the dynamism of the court itself is really crazy and changes, and the animals are changing from 2 legs to 4 legs, and I think they said they had 25 different species of animals throughout the movie, which is crazy. I mean, the whole movie is a real technical challenge. I mean, I remember, I think I talked about this on the show, but I saw the first footage from it at Annecy last summer, and it was rough. Like, not rough as in bad, but rough as in seeing layout, seeing storyboards, seeing pencil tests, that kind of thing.
Yep.
So for them to go from that to now, which is not a lot of time, less than a year, and finish all the animation, effects, lighting, camera, all of that, I mean, it's pretty amazing. So, yeah.
All right. Well, no. Very much looking forward to seeing this. That said, I have to ask if the topic of Zootopia 2 came up at this press thing. Because face it, I mean, given the numbers that movie is doing for Disney, and more to that it's shown that there's an appetite out there for an animal-based film, with a great story. The fact that, here comes Goat, right behind that. I mean, that should, in theory, translate into some pretty decent box office, don't you think?
Yeah, I do think nobody mentioned Zootopia at the press day, but I mean, I'm certain that they're happy about it. Yeah, I mean, they have a pretty robust consumer products line.
You mentioned that.
If I turn my camera on, Jim, you can see my Rollerball hat. That's the official Rollerball League hat with the lion in it. So cool. There's action figures out now. There's all sorts of things. So I think Sony knows that it is going to be popular, and I also asked them if they were thinking about other things, and the vibe I got, Jim, was that there are things planned, that this is the beginning, perhaps, of a new universe, if you will.
Oh, very cool. Okay.
Yeah.
So, sequel, TV series, whatever.
Yes. You're thinking all the right things, I think,
There
Jim.
we go. All right. Well, now to transition from one animal-based animated film to another, we're going to talk about Pixar's Hoppers. But before we do that, there's this.
When you want your spring break to feel like and your kids' pool day to feel like and your hotel bed to feel like and room service to feel like, because at Hilton, hospitality feels like
Your cabana's ready. Would you like fresh towels?
it matters where you stay. Book now at Hilton.com. Hilton, for the stay.
TaxAct knows filing taxes can be confusing, so we have live experts on hand who can help answer any questions you may have. Questions like, can I claim my SUV as my home office if I answer work emails in my car? If I adopted 12 dogs this year, can I list them as dependents? And, am I doing this right, or am I doing this very, very wrong? Our experts have the answers to those questions and many others. Tax Act. Let's get them over with.
And we're back. But before we get to Hopper's folks, kind of a real sad note, because this past Friday, January 30th, we learned of the sad passing of Catherine O'Hara, who, I've been following her and her work since SCTV back in the 80s. When do you remember first discovering Catherine O'Hara, Drew?
Well, I mean, it was probably, given my age and relative youth, Jim, probably Beetlejuice in '88.
Oh yeah.
I don't think I even registered that she plays a bit role in Dick Tracy, which is one of my favorite movies. Like a real kind of like she's in the background. She's kind of a secondary villain in Dick Tracy. But I think Beetlejuice and Home Alone were probably, my first real exposure to her. And then obviously, we should talk about just how much amazing voice work she has done over the years.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you got to start with Nightmare Before Christmas, where she's not just Sally, she's also it's Shock, right? The little witch character.
Shock, yeah,
yep. And then I mean, I know a lot of people don't necessarily like Chicken Little, but I love her and Fred Willard as the parents of the weird little alien, who come to Earth to save their child. Likewise, in fact, she paired with Eugene Levy in Over the Hedge.
Yes, she
eventually
is, Jim.
And of course they worked together forever on SCTV, and then had that Schitt's Creek, where
they're also frequently paired in the Christopher Guest movies as well.
They are.
Yes.
And then she plays the mom in Frankenweenie, and we also got her in Elemental as the aunt Brooke Ripple, and I loved her as the distracted, overwrought mom in The Wild Robot. She was so great in that. But she also did a lot of stuff for direct-to-video. She's Lumilda in Bartok the Magnificent, and in fact, what was kind of interesting about the work she did in Brother Bear 2, they had her paired with Andrea Martin, who of course was her co-star on SCTV. But I mean, the whole group of moose there, Rick Moranis and Dave Thomas, all SCTV vets.
Yep. I also love her in Monster House. Is a very underrated animated feature, which I love.
Yep.
And she also, Jim, did the voice for a localized version of When Marnie Was There, the Studio Ghibli movie from 2014.
I saw that.
She plays the older version of the Marnie character, which is a really beautiful movie if you haven't seen it. It's such a kind of low-key Studio Ghibli movie, but it is really wonderful if you've never seen it. So maybe seek that one out to pay your respects. Her voice work is amazing. I mean, I was running down. I did 9 of her most famous sort of film roles, and I put Wild Robot in there because I love that performance so much.
I especially love that moment where you think one of the little possums has died off screen, and then you hear I'm okay, and it's oh great, and it just it's such a wonderful performance, and she also did great work.
She teaches the robot how to be a mother. It's so cute. Yeah.
It is. But did you ever get a chance to talk with her?
I don't think so. I mean, she I mean, trying to run down even her TV stuff, Jim, is like impossible. And she did even more voice work on TV, including on friend of the show's Josh Gad's show Central Park.
Yes. I could, I also loved her. What is it? The complete mental misadventures of Ed Grimley. It was only out in the world for a tenth of a second, but a wonderful show full of his friends from or Catherine's friends from SCTV.
Yes. I love her Tales from the Crypt episode too, which is really cool. It was the season premiere, I believe, of season 6, aired on Christmas or on Halloween night, Jim. And it was a wonderful, wonderful episode where she plays a really awful lawyer who's stranded in a town that is very backwards and she can't get out. And it's just one of those perfect Tales from the Crypt kind of morality plays. But man, she could do it all, couldn't she, Jim?
She could. I was lucky enough to get to interview her twice over the past 25 years. And what was fascinating about her is that she deflected constantly. I mean, it was one of these things where you talk about her wonderful work in a film. You'd say, you did an amazing job. And say, no. But, my co-star in that scene, she wasn't really comfortable talking about her. In fact, that's, both times I chatted with her, it was like I came away with nothing I could actually use for an interview because she had been, so busy praising her co-stars and so busy. No, I was okay, but he was great.
Did you ever see her, Jim? Did you ever see any of the Hollywood Bowl Nightmare Before Christmas performances?
Oh, I was just watching the one of her and Rubens doing Kidnap the Santa Claus, and it's like, I wish I could have seen that in person, but well, anyway, a huge loss for the film, the comedy community, and especially animation. So, Drew and I want to offer our sincerest condolences to Catherine O'Hara's friends and families. This is a huge loss.
Yeah, and she was married to Bo Welsh, who is one of the most amazing production designers.
Yeah. In fact, that kind of startled me when I saw that this past weekend. It's like, wow, that in and of itself, it's like, I would have loved to have been able to sit down with the two of them and talk, because it's like, imagine the stories.
Total geniuses, yeah.
And there we go. Speaking of stories, Drew was just up at Emeryville now this was the official press day, not the long lead press day, right? For Hoppers.
It was the long lead press day, Jim, but they had the movie ready, so they showed us the whole thing. What do you think about that?
Wow. So
yeah.
And now I have to sort of preface this because there was a wonderful story this past week that Daniel Chong, the director creator of this film, came up with. And they were talking about, evidently, while Hoppers was in development and it was still in board form, there were a number of supposedly execs at Pixar who were like, this is kind of out there for us. This is kind of wild comedy for Pixar. So maybe let's pull this in. Maybe, did you hear the story as well that it was Andrew Stanton and Pete Docter who came to Daniel's defense to the effect of, no, this is funny. Keep it the way it is. And so, well, can you tell that ice folks about how Daniel described his saviors who came in and defended his film?
He said, didn't he say it was like being saved by Pixar Jesus or something?
Yeah. So Pixar Jesus, the reason So let's talk about. You've seen this film, which again, this is the log line for the project, folks. When scientists discover a way to transform human consciousness into robotic animals, Mabel uses this technology to uncover mysteries of the animal world that are beyond anything she could have ever imagined. But that's kind of a very mild description of what's kind of a crazy movie, isn't it?
It's kind of insane. I said to Daniel that it's the rare movie that starts at Gremlins level anarchy and only gets crazier from there.
Oh, wow.
Which he loved. He loved that description. So yeah.
Okay. Because what little I've seen of Mabel so far, that's a great character, both in human and beaver form. But I mean, so really, it starts at gremlin level craziness. Wow.
Yes, it is absolutely insane, and I loved it. You know, I'm an animal lover, Jim, and
sure.
I am obsessed with my dog. And so, you know, Mabel, you're right, is a great character. She loves animals, and she's always fighting with this kind of blowhard mayor, played by John Hamm in a perfectly John Hammy role, about this kind of estuary pond that is going to be leveled because of a highway expansion. And so she goes into the beaver to try to get them back to the pond. Now, here's the thing, Jim, that is maybe the best part of this press day that I loved so much, and I haven't been able to talk about anywhere, so I'm talking about it with you, is that they had a beaver expert there. She is a doctor who studies beavers. That is her entire thing. She gave this presentation about how beavers kind of save ecosystems, and it's absolutely fascinating. Yeah. So, you know, there's some real shit in this movie that applies to real life, and it's a very environmentally forward movie in a really lovely way that I'm sure made some execs nervous. I'm sure that was part of the nervousness too. Is like, oh God. But just beautiful character animation. It's just I think it's the funniest Pixar movie they've ever made. And I remember I saw Bob Peterson, you know, a few years ago when I was at Pixar, and we were talking about this, and he said it's just funny. It's just like a funny movie that is just charming. It's full of heart. You want to hug every character. I mean, they're just like, this is the most plush ready Pixar movie ever, Jim. I know you really wanted to cuddle up in bed with your Flick plush, but this is really the most kind of like I don't know. It's just I loved it. I loved it to death. I think it's one of their best movies, and I was laughing the entire time. And it is just going to be a hoot. See it in a theater because there are so many surprises and there are so many left turns that this thing takes. And Jim, I swear to God, if you open that Art of book past about page 10, you're going to get a slap on the wrist from me because
all right. I'll be good. I'll be good. Now, mind you, you're not wrong about what they say. You were told about ecosystems and beavers. And in fact, again, Nancy and I live out in the woods of southern New Hampshire. We're literally across the street from us is a giant wetland. And, you know, this was maybe 10 years ago. We have a little pond next to our property, and this family of beavers moved in, and it was fascinating to watch them, you know, topple trees around the pond, and we go down and watch them. But the thing that they don't tell you about beavers is they can be really aggressive.
Well, they slap the tails on the water. Yeah.
Yes, they do. In fact, that was the thing that Nancy and I were standing at the edge of the pond watching them one evening, and one of them saw us and started cruising at us like a PT boat, but the entire time was slapping its tail like, I'm going to come bite your face. You know, you get the hell out of here.
You're lucky you saw them, Jim, because they're very secluded and shy.
They are.
They do a lot of their work at night, I guess, but they're very, Jim, like the two of us, they have a lovely layer of fat that keeps them buoyant, but also makes them very delicious. So, that they have to be very wary of predators because they're not the fastest. They're not the,
No. Now, one final thing before we close up here, because I was looking at your coverage and that sort of thing, and what's interesting about again that this film toggles back and forth between the human world and the animal world, and what's interesting about when you get out in nature, it gets kind of chaotic. So, did they talk at all about doing that, toggling back and forth between the human world and the
I'm
animal
so glad you brought this up, Jim, so I can share a reference point, because the beavers look different from when you're in the beaver world than when you're, a human looking in on the beaver world. And they communicate differently when the animals are together, because you don't just see the king of the beavers, Jim. You see the insect queen, played by Meryl Streep. Yep, and a bunch of others. And they use this wonderful thing. I always thought it was such malarkey that one of the things that John Lasseter was so hung up on was that animals and people cannot communicate. That's like his biggest thing. Okay, but they use this ingenious thing that they borrow from Pompoko, which, speaking of another underrated Studio Ghibli movie, the way that they present the, I don't even know what they are, raccoons or whatever they are in Pompoko. Yeah. That way of they communicate differently, and that humans see them differently. And so I know it sounds like a lot visually, but it's told in a very easy to grasp way, and it's just wonderful. But yeah, Pompoko, if you haven't seen it, that's a very good kind of primer for the world of hoppers that you're about to get into. So yeah.
Wow. All right. I'll just circle back on that before Hoppers opens in theaters, which again, remind folks, that's March 6th. But on the other hand, Goat opens in theaters next Friday, Friday the 13th. And Drew, thank you for sharing these great stories from these two press events.
Of course.
But you know what else? Drew did a great job of covering the Mission Impossible film series.
Well, you know what? I will say, Jim, that Daniel Chong is a big Light the Fuse guy. So, we got... We gotta give him a shout out. Yeah.
Okay. Well, good to hear. By the way, if you want to learn more about those 8 movies, as Drew just mentioned, Light the Fuse, the official Mission Impossible podcast, that was something that Drew did with his co-host Charles Hoods, and there are nearly 300 episodes of that podcast in that show's archive, and every one of them has great behind-the-scenes stories. Now, and we share some fun stories here at Jim Hill Media as well, on podcasts like Disney Dish with Len Testa, the Epic Universal podcast I do with Eric Hersey, Likewise I Want That Too. That's the merch podcast I do with Eric's lovely bride, Lauren. We also have Disney Unpacked. That's our Patreon project. Just recently posted a walkthrough of Epcot from November of last year, and this past week, veteran Imagineer Jim Schul and Len Test and I recorded a show about Pooh's Honey Hunt, which is also a tribute to the late, great Eddie Sato. Anyway, speaking of great, I want to thank Eric Hersey and David Gray for the great job they do when it comes to editing and producing this podcast. Also have a quick favor to ask here, folks. Could please head over to Apple Podcasts and rate and review this show, as well as Light the Fuse. And beyond that, Drew, social media, where can the nice folks find you?
Drew Taylor, like a tailored shirt, on Instagram and Twitter. Yeah, that's it. Okay. What about you, Jim? Where can people find you?
Let's see. I'm on X. I'm on Instagram as Jim Hill Media, and then over on Facebook is Jim Hill Media News. And with that, folks, that's going to do it for this week's Fine Tuning. I just want to thank you for listening in, and Drew and I will be back next week.